We continue our 2020 look at Christmas films with the celebration of the 30th anniversary of Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands, with Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder leading an all-star cast. Inspired by Burton's own time in high school, there's a psychological claptrap for you. The film finds an aspiring mother and makeup saleswoman discovering an odd man in a creepy manor at the end of her block. A man condemned with literal blades and scissors for hands. Naturally, she takes him home, where he immediately falls in love with her teenage daughter and runs afoul with her curious but close-minded town. Okay, so let's get all of the puns out of the way first. Yes, this movie is edgy. It's a cut above the rest. It's a good slice of Christmas pie. Yes, we're talking about Edward Scissorhands. And Kyle, if you need to dump some puns, I know that's not your thing, but here's your safe space to do so.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't, run with this movie in my hands,
I will say that if anybody were to ask me on the street, because people always ask me questions about movies on the street, what I felt was the definitive Tim Burton movie. Not necessarily his best, but the definitive Tim Burton movie, I'd probably say Edward Scissorhands. This is a film that could not have been made by anybody other than that black and white striped man.
Yeah, I got to tell you, in light of the fact you said that, it doesn't surprise me that that's your response to that question. Because I'm watching this, I'm thinking, this is what happens when you get like either like Beetlejuice and then put Disney on it. Like that's what this movie is. And of course, this is what happens when you get Tim Burton and Danny Elfman together. Okay, it's dark with a bit of Disney in here, I mean,
a little bit more bloody than the traditional Disney fare of the time, but
correct. And listen, like you have somebody with scissors for hands, but you'll still somehow the music is still. Thank you, Danny Elfman. Thank you.
It's kind of funny in a way. Last week we talked about Small One and how that was Don Bluth's last film for Disney before embarking on his own storied career. Tim Burton has a similar past. He directed a few shorts for Disney. He did Frankenweenie and stuff, and then he later produced and did other stuff for them way down the line. But when he broke out on his own, holy crap! The man went from freaking Pee-wee to Beetlejuice, to Batman, to Edward Scissorhands, to Nightmare Before Christmas.
I see a theme.
There is a lot of him in this film, not just in the storytelling or the method of the storytelling, but in the character itself. He has cited it as his favorite film, although not necessarily his best. And Danny Elfman has also mentioned that this is his favorite score.
I can see why he would say that.
What did you think of the score? The score is incredible.
The score was whimsical as hell, like Danny Elfman is, but Christ, like literally the one that he's born to write.
It's straight up haunting.
You beat me to it. Yeah, whimsy with scary stuff in the background. That's Danny Elfman in a nutshell. Like, I'm pretty sure he did Beetlejuice too. I could be wrong.
He did almost all of Burton's films.
Yeah, I know they got kind of a thing too, but like
it's like it's like Spielberg and John Williams. It's Burton and Elfman. But
here's my point. For movies that are dark with a ton of whimsy, Elfman's your guy. I could literally start humming, or why hum when I got this here? This wasn't even planned, right? If I go... That sounds like it could fit in Edward Scissorhands. That's an excerpt from Beetlejuice, folks. So, like... And when, as I do that melody, you got to think, just like always you do it. Yeah. It's a perfect fit. What do you want me to tell you? Like, listen, if you're doing a badass movie with a robot trying to be a cop, you get Basil Poledouris. If you're trying to do a Star Wars movie, you get John Williams. If you're trying to do whimsy with darkness, you get Danny effing Elfman. If you're trying to do anything else with some sort of silliness, you get Randy Newman. That's a whole other question.
If you're going to do a dark Christmas-themed film, whether it be Nightmare Before Christmas, Batman Returns, or Edward Scissorhands, you need to get the guy whose last name literally starts with the word elf.
Thank you.
But, funny enough, this film was not a film that was originally gonna cover this quickly in required viewing, because this film is one of those films I feel like has a very, at least for me, has a very obvious answer. And then we got a request for who it could have been based on this movie. And to my shock, you hadn't seen it. So we had to put it on the list. So before you talk about what your initial thoughts were of the film, what was your impression of Edward Scissorhands before watching the film?
So I knew it was something that was incredibly well acclaimed. I believe it had a number of nominations, maybe not many wins. Yeah, but it was nominated left, right, and center. Matter of fact, the only reason I really remember this movie is noticing how much I had heard of it in the awards show, watching it that year, you know, back when the Academy Awards still mattered, right? Every time you bring up this movie, which again, not that we talk about it here lately, you know, damn near 20 plus years later. Well, not damn near, it has to be 20 plus, otherwise
30 years.
Oh, I knew it was in the 90s. I did not realize it was 9D until you actually texted me in production.
December 7th.
Interesting. A day that will live in infamy, but for a completely different reason. Anyways.
Yes. It's the day Edward Scissorhands entered our life, right? That's the big thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's where he established his beachhead. Anyways, Edward Scissorhands is Tim Burton's Normandy. That's what you're trying to say.
He hacked himself a spot in history.
Mystery is what comes across this movie. Not just the tone that it sets, but I really had no idea what to expect going into this. I really had no preconceptions here. All I know is that the critics seem to love it. And I get why, just within the first 5 minutes. And so there's definitely some pretentious artsy-fartsy things going on there, no question, using a scientific term, of course. Mystery not only in what kind of movie it may be, but mystery as to what to expect, and this from so many sources. Like you mentioned, my mom and I were talking and said, so what's the show going to be on tonight, honey? Edward Scissorhands. Really? Like that, kind of look, you know what I mean? So, obviously I mentioned the holiday tie-in, right? But
hey, this is more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard.
Damn straight.
And anyway, I know we make fun of it. If you watch Die Hard on Christmas, I'm never going to say, don't watch Die Hard. So,
oh, sure.
Yeah.
Watch Die Hard at Christmas. Watch Die Hard the week after Christmas, because that could have been pulled off just the same. The company could have just had the party after the holiday because of the way Christmas fell. We
really should have reviewed Die Hard this year, a movie about being trapped indoors and trying to escape.
And now I'm sad. I'm really just stuck with that whole thing of what my impression was going to be was pure mystery. It didn't really have a lot to go on, mixed reaction, and actually, the movie itself had, you know, a very mysterious element to it at times.
I mean, it is about a man that has scissors for hands. I mean, what the heck could that be? If it's not a horror film, what the hell is it? And I remember when I was a kid, this was a big deal when this movie came out. I remember definitely in my school, everybody loved it, but for completely different reasons. The guys loved it because it was about a guy with scissors for hands. That show and tell scene alone was every boy's dream come true in school. And of course, all the girls loved it for the romance and the emotional side to it. It really had appeal for all ages.
So what you're trying to say is that the ladies were watching it because they wanted a movie with some depth.
Not bad. I have rubbed off on you in all the worst ways.
Never say that again, especially with some of the Me Too moments that are in this movie.
Hey, Edward Scissorhands, I mean, he was Me Too'd at one point.
He practically raped Joyce, you know, threatening her with those knives of his. It's a miracle she escaped.
Now that you've seen the film, what are your initial thoughts? Now that the mystery has been unveiled.
This is some depressing fireball. Okay? I even texted you that. I'm sorry, you're going to have to get the beep out, but a fireball isn't going to do it this time. This movie was sad. I know, and I'll get into more of that later, but I mean, sure, I had a good time, and I didn't expect an absolute romp. I knew something was going to go wrong. I didn't know this damn wrong. Like, how do you mentally, if you're you, how do you mentally prepare me without giving it away? You can't.
I couldn't.
Yeah, so what you're forced to do is be like, hey, Kyle, it's going to totally be a car accident. But here's the thing. Like, I'm going to make some comparisons to this, with The Exorcist in the name of keeping analogies crazy, right? You know, I'm not going to bring up Sophie's Choice, right? But no.
Are you going to say that lady, the Christian lady, was trying to exorcise the demons from her?
Good try. Not where I was going, but I did love his little comeback scissors prank that he did on her. That was awesome. But I knew it was coming. I saw the tragic element coming. First of all, we've talked a lot about colors on this show, in a lot of cases with Alfred Hitchcock. Here, it goes from Stepford to darkness on a turn of a dime. Thank you, Tim Burton. You didn't expect that. Hashtag you problem.
That contrast is, I really love that about that film. The contrast between what is like the most stereotypical garish colored Florida town that apparently is right next door to New Hampshire.
Exactly.
They did film it in Florida.
I'm not proud of Lutz, Florida, and their choicing of houses unless they were painted for the production. But I digress.
It was a real suburb. The colors were added. Everything else apparently was unchanged. Apparently. That
well, except for maybe
the mountain. Yeah, okay.
Well, that and topiaries and basements, but
the topiaries were fake.
You don't put basements in an aquifer, ladies and gentlemen.
If I can buy a robot scissor man running around, I can buy a basement in Florida. It'd be a terrible value, but I could buy it.
No, I was about to say, like, a guy with scissors for hands and all that. No real parents. The creation of Vincent Price. Okay, I buy that. A basement in Florida. What the fireball? No, but I mean, it's a neck-breaking contrast. But to your point, it works. You're going to have to give me a name here because I always forget this chick's name, and everything she does, she's a perfect fit. She's typecast, sure, but damn it, some people are just so good at being that type.
Which lady? Because you have to be more specific.
Well, fair point, but what I'm getting to is our favorite Avon calling lady, right?
Diane Wiest.
She is perfect in basically every role she plays, and I say God bless it. But the punchline is when she's first discovering the house because she's that desperate for sales, because let's be honest, doesn't everybody get into a nasty situation because they're desperate for sales?
Like her monologue, it's psychologically effective. It's soothing. Listen, I could actually watch half an hour with that close up talking about makeup, and I actually would feel calmer.
The whole loud pink hat Avon case calling thing, pink head to toe, walking in the middle of this dark ass space, and where she's going to be bright and bubbly and adopt the first human she sees. Air quotes, human. It just so sets the stage for what's about to go on. And like I said, I saw the tragedy a mile away, and much like The Exorcist, I knew Ish was going to get scary. And it still worked on me and surprised me somehow,
Yeah, I saw when you texted me that it was depressing. I'm like, yes, it is, but I would even dare say that it's poignant. Before we get into the ending, let's backtrack a little bit to the overall style of the film, because we're talking about Tim Burton. Obviously, we're going to talk about style. The argument has been made, and it's probably accurate for a lot of Tim Burton's films, about style over substance. In this particular film, the style, I think, really pushes and not pushes, but really accents the narrative.
It's a driving force.
I love the gothic contrast with this multi-generational town. And I say multi-generational not from old to young, but parts of it belong in the 50s, parts of it belong in the 70s. It definitely takes place during modern times, because they're talking about modern times from 1990. They're talking about 4-head VCRs, etc. The entire town is a character upon itself, and this gossipy, conforming nature of it, contrasted with this 1930s horror film just down the street. Everything about this film, and you've said it more often than I have, but everything about this film should not work. It really should not work. It's Desperate Housewives where everybody's macking on Frankenstein.
They never got this desperate, Demos. You say Frankenstein, listen, I think it's just polite Beetlejuice, but hey, potato.
Except Beetlejuice in his 20 minutes of scenes has about 7 or 8 times the amount of dialogue that Edward Scissorhands has in this film. And I will admit, I have a kick-ass Edward Scissorhands costume. I was this close to wearing it, rather than the cowboy hat I normally wear. But I honestly felt that it would be odd having me as Edward speak as much. It just would not be the right look.
Yeah, one thing you cannot accuse Edward Scissorhands of is being told to shut the F up. Demos, on the other hand, I mean, what?
Yeah, well, and you'll never get me to stop either. Anyway, so...
Indeed.
As far as the style, I love the cinematography. I love the contrast. I think the one of the biggest laugh out loud moments of the film is the hard cut from the mansion to Edward Scissorhands in the car.
Yeah,
spot on.
Legit.
Well, I will give it props for an original spin on a classic fairy tale. I mean, many have described it as a modern fairy tale, and I hardly agree with that. There is that sweetness, there is that edge of mystery, and no, that wasn't a pun. There is that atmosphere saturating out of every frame, and many people have compared it, and rightly so, to Frankenstein, to Hunchback of Notre Dame, Phantom of the Opera, etc. And I believe
my wife said Pygmalion as a possible fit.
Pygmalion to a degree, perhaps.
It's there, but I'm with you. I wouldn't go with that first.
What struck me watching it again is, and in all fairness, it has been compared to this story, but it's not one of the ones that people spurred out first, and yet I feel that it is the driving force of the narrative. This is Beauty and the Beast.
Fair.
Straight up, except instead of having the father, while he's trying to sell his inventions or whatever, approach the dark castle and come across the beast. In this particular case, it's the mother. And of course, you do have the love scene between the young beauty and Winona Ryder. And in all fairness, when I say Beauty and the Beast, I'm not even talking about the Disney version, because this predates the Disney version by a year. I compare it more so to the 1946 French version. Even some of the camera shots of the castle or the manor are very, very much inspired by that 46 film. If you haven't seen that film, watching it might actually completely change your impression of what the animated version turned out to be. Even down to one other similarity, even down to the point where you have Jim, the lover of the Kim character. They have their disagreement. He goes to the castle and then tries to kill the beast, is right on point with not only the Gaston with Disney later on, but the Avenant character in that original 46 film. And let's be honest, when all the villagers and the people from the suburb approach the castle, if you were to overplay Kill the Beast from the Disney version, it would still make sense. Through a mist to a wood, where within a haunted castle something's lurking that you don't see every day. This is very much Tim Burton's wacky Beauty and the Beast tale. And now, it works very, very well.
It's interesting because I know our last episode that we recorded was Rocky, and I made a big point to point out how Paulie's a scumbag. Now, Jim has competition. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, the one right before. Last week we did Small One, which oddly enough has a kind of a similar bittersweet ending where both characters have to say goodbye to their loved ones. Of course, in one case it's a donkey, in the other case it's a mechanical scissor man, but...
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. The donkey thing was always going to end bad because Father Time is undefeated.
Father Time is cruel to jackasses. Yes, we get the moral of the story.
That we're in big trouble. But what I'm trying to say is this, Gmos,
That'll be the tagline of the episode. Father Time is cruel to jackasses.
Edward Scissorhands did not have to end badly. It just didn't. But it all starts to go wrong because some dumbass who thinks she's great because she can make ambrosia salad, one of the single most overrated damn cookout dishes of all time, hashtag that's what I said it, comes in and causes the Me Too moment. And Demos, I'm gonna segue to this even though I'm not the damn host. I finally found something. I never thought I would find a movie where this would happen. I would never thought I'd be in a position to say that Edward Scissorhands might be the most depressing production we've done on Hilarity by Default thus far.
We covered The Godfather, Part 3.
I don't think that's necessarily depressing.
No, it's existence.
More people choose X-Lax than any other laxative.
Oh, The Godfather 3? Well, okay, separate point. But what I am going to say is, I never thought I would say a movie that there would. I would never think that there were a movie that where I see a scene like this and go, you know what? That resonates more nowadays. What she does in the scene with the beauty shop is framed to be something with an element of humor in it, but it's treated as the serious situation that it is later. More people will take the serious part seriously than they may have in the first one. There are just simply some things where some humor is sprinkled in that, because of the wacky nature of there being a character like Edward Scissorhands that exists, people may dub this or frame this movie as a comedy. It's not, but they may try to frame it that way.
Well, there are comedic elements to it. A lot of the middle is comedy.
Les Miserables had some funny moments in it, too. Tell me that's a comedy.
Yeah,
anyway.
But 45 minutes of this movie is almost pure comedy. Essentially, you have the innocent character of Edward, who even the police questioned whether or not he has a mental capability of existing in the world, which I find the psychologists say, oh yeah, he'll be fine.
He'll be fine. I laughed at that. We have established is that he's a man-made creation. Did the Vincent Price character take the time to make him anatomically correct and functional?
I don't know. And to be honest, I think that's a problem a lot of people have had with the film is they don't explain much. How did he survive in that manner without eating? How did he do everything? With his hands? How did he? Can he procreate? How is he alive? What the heck do his insides look? Yes, we got a couple of drawings for literally a split second, but that doesn't really explain too much. And I don't think that this is one of those films that it's requisite to have that much logic applied to. This is a fairy tale that is being told from the point of view of this young girl to her own daughter later on. That's something a lot of people forget about Edward Scissorhands, is that the film is told from the young girl's point of view.
So what you're trying to say is this is what happens when Tim Burton gets a hold of The Princess Bride. This is a much happier ending now, Demos.
I don't have a problem with the ending. In many ways, I think that I think that's the only way this story could have ended. And then to add the Christmas twist with the snow, and even though I said earlier about logic, narratively, it makes logical sense for him to be able to produce the snow. Once again, this is a fairy tale. How the entire film, even the way it's framed, I could even make an argument that everything is taking place in the snow globe in the little girl's room, that none of it ever really happened.
I'll say this. You mentioned this being a production that's very simple and skips a lot of details. For all the stuff that I mentioned about mystery, the way things go when the movie starts and our Avon lady goes in and meets Ed, I'm going to call him Ed. I'm sorry. I'm just lazy like that. When she goes in and meets him, the premise is right there in front of you. What's your name? Edward. You're going to come live with us. What the hell?
Well, let's talk a little bit about Johnny Depp's performance. And I know it's popular nowadays to talk about what's currently happening in the actor's life. I'm not going to deal with that crap. I'm going to deal with this film. His performance here is fantastic. It is great. He blends into the role. I can't imagine anybody else playing it like this. Any other actor may have been perhaps more showy in this role. And of course, it is Johnny Depp, so there is eyeshadow. But regardless of the eyeshadow...
Hey, there's an Avon lady. If you don't use eyeshadow at this point, it's a you problem.
It makes perfect sense for once. There is an understated nature to Depp's performance, and it doesn't surprise me when I read that he watched a lot of Charlie Chaplin films to be able to do expressions while silent. You get so much.
That makes sense.
You get so much out of him, especially when you consider the fact that he says like 126 words in the whole film. He has.
I think RoboCop might say more than he does.
I think RoboCop definitely says a lot more. I think he has at least one monologue, and I will admit I've never seen
RoboCop
2 or 3. I've seen the original. I was good with the original. In the same way that I'm happy there was never an Edward Scissorhands 2. Tim Burton.
Oh God, no! You can't.
Tim Burton himself said he wanted to preserve the purity of that film, which is probably one of the reasons we don't see films like this anymore. Because if it doesn't have a sequel, why spend all the money to make it? Oh, I can even see the argument being made. Oh no, it won't be about Edward Scissorhands, but it'll be like about one of the other professors' creations. We'll have Arnold Ruler Face or Vincent Staple Legs.
Arnold Ruler Face. Demos, I have to tell you, that character certainly does not measure up.
Better than Haggard Pencil Groin, but
Haggard Pencil Groin? I don't know which. What is the source of that pun? Is it Scissorhands? Is it Pencil Groin? I don't know. Also, a sentence I never thought I'd say out loud. I do not have enough beer for this episode.
I will admit. Since we're on this topic, one of the things I never quite got when I saw it in 1990 when I was 7 years old, perhaps too young to watch this film in retrospect, but the scene where he's cutting all the ladies' hair. Oh my God. Watching that as an adult, way different.
There is an eroticism I am not prepared for.
Is he giving them scissor hand jobs?
Yes, he is, Demos. Yes, he is. And by the way, as a side note, since you brought it up, I'm sure as hell glad he's not asked to do a Brazilian. I'm just saying.
No, we'll leave that to Haggard Pencil Groin. Remember earlier I said something about applying logic to things? Yeah. Anyway.
That's a mistake. Yes.
Winona Ryder, once again, when I think of Winona Ryder, I almost forget that she's in this film because she's a blonde. I don't know what it is about Tim Burton.
That takes a minute. If she doesn't have jet black hair, I'm like, what the F is going on?
I had the same problem in another Tim Burton movie, Christina Ricci in Sleepy Hollow, another Johnny Depp-led film. He has a thing for this. In many respects, I actually found the non-sexual relationship between Edward and Diane Wiest to be much, much more interesting. I even like the little subtle thing where after the village, I'm going to call it the village from now, the village of Florida starts turning on him.
The village Lutz. Yes.
She still keeps receiving haircuts from him steadfastly to the point where she has, by the end of the film, she has really, really short hair. It
looks great. Not for nothing.
And in the contrast, she's the only one that when she goes to get a haircut from Edward, you can tell in her face she's there because she's proud of him. She's not getting what everybody else is getting from
cheap thrills.
Yeah, from that experience. I think that if I were to cite a weakness in Edward Scissorhands, I felt that there should have been a little bit more closure from Diane Wiest's character. Because the last time you see her, she's just out in the street saying, the kid from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, he only has a small cut on his face.
That's a fair point, too. But again, what else would you get out of it other than, I think at that point, some depression's fine. Heck, I really genuinely hate depressing movies. So for me, it's a bigger struggle personally. I get it. Listen, some people, think that Bridges of Madison County is a masterpiece. I would never subject myself to that for two reasons. A, not my kind of movie. B, from what I hear, it's depressing as hell. What's the point?
With that being said, let's get to the big question of the evening. Is Edward Scissorhands required viewing? With a caveat, if you don't consider it required viewing, do you consider it required Christmas viewing? Kyle.
I'm going to lead with that first. No, this is not required Christmas viewing. Your holidays should never be this depressing. I can't sign off on that. Man, I'll lead it for this. For the film noir types that wear berets and snap instead of clap, yeah, you got to see this movie. You mentioned the style aspect. This thing beats you in the face with style. Demos, this is the first movie where I really wish I wrote more stuff down than I did just watching it. I find that actually ruins my ability to analyze it. But there are some things in here that, like, every character's got a little something that's just a perfect representation of what they are. Like, for example, Me Too Lady coming up with ambrosia salad. There's a reason why that chick is bringing ambrosia salad. It's got a fancy name based on Greek mythology. And it's the most overrated damn thing you've ever seen. Ain't nothing beautiful or ambrosic, that's not an adjective, I just made it up, folks, about this chick in the first place. Granted, some of her clothing choices match the bright aesthetic of the Stepford neighborhood that is Lutz Florida, apparently. But from that to the pink Avon lady outfit we cited earlier, to Kim in her cheerleader outfit, to hell, the only thing that Jim was missing was wearing a leather jacket. He had a douchebag van with fire on the sides that he rode around.
He has a leather jacket. A leather jacket.
Leather jackets imply you did something. I think Jim stole that mamma jamma. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And the irony in all of it is I make fun of that van to identify him. You come to find out later, he's not even driving the SOB. He's
LeFou's driving.
There you go. Except don't you dare rub that much disrespect on Gaston and LeFou. But what I'm trying to say is this. Everybody's got a little something that just so very perfectly defines who they are in the little things. You know, I could keep going with the rest of the ladies and how each little thing makes sense. And there's a reason why Ed cuts the topiaries as he does. One in particular to our Jesus lady, so perfect. The father is a bowling champion, something he can brag about, but is still so perfectly damn mundane. I'll put it this way. It's appropriate for a character whose last name is Depp is shredding waterbeds, because you need that much water, if not more, to acquire the scuba certification to truly experience the depth of this movie. However, I can't call it required because I'm not sitting through that depression again. I can't make it. It makes me sad.
Well,
and that's the
hang on. We can't
part.
say that any movie that has a depressing ending is not required viewing.
But I don't have to like it.
I
so
don't.
That's why I would give it the it belongs in a museum, which is tantamount to requirement for artsy fartsy in this case. Simply because I'm very damn certain that you are never going to walk out of a film and say to yourself in a good way, you know, that was kind of like Edward Scissorhands. It's not going to happen. Not credibly, anyway.
I know, to be honest, I'm going to have to disagree with you here. I'll explain it with my take on it.
Shit out. No.
There are films that have depressing endings for the sake of shock or for the sake of there being a depressing ending. And I would name a lot of examples, but I'd be spoiling a whole slew of movies.
Fair as well.
The ending here, I wouldn't even necessarily classify it as depressing. It's definitely bittersweet. It is poignant, and in many ways, I think it is beautiful. I think it's a beautiful ending. It's the only ending that could have happened with this story.
If it wasn't sad, it wouldn't be credible. I'm with you on that part, which is why it's hard for me to analyze.
If the ending is what gives you the lasting impression of this film, Edward Scissorhands would just be a kooky thing about a robot with scissors for hands. The fact that it's depressing at the end means that it sold you on this crazy guy having a heart and having humanity in him, perhaps even more so than the other garish characters are there strictly to compare him off of. The fact that it leaves you with that emotion means that this film accomplished something that is extremely difficult to do.
Again, 100% agreed. Listen, what can I say? Disney-esque steampunk, brought to you by Tim Burton.
It really is a story of how conformity eats individualism. It's a story of many things. Many people will analyze it. Many people have. I mean, I can go down the list of all the foreshadowing. Oh, look, the staircase. The statue has long fingers, just like scissors before you see him. Or how his first topiary is a dinosaur. But what's dinosaur? Specifically a T-Rex, which has, despite how grand it is, has short, stubby little hands. There is a lot of obvious and subtle symbolism that I can spend an hour on and make myself look like, oh, look how great I am for noticing something
The ice block with the cold exterior is really just an angel on the inside. No, I get it.
This is a film that I think affects people in many different ways depending on your own background. If you were the bullied loner or the misunderstood artist or so forth, there's a lot that you can capture in this story. The ending, I think, is the idea that this character, I can even buy it from a mythological aspect if you're to apply it, that Snow comes from this mechanical man who only wanted love but has scissors for hands that creates snow sculptures, and that's why the world gets snow, because he's doing ice sculptures. He first started out making cookies, but then as he became more human, he, instead of shaping cookies, he shaped topiaries and ice sculptures and so forth. In many ways, his evolution from that to that makes sense perfectly narratively. But once again, I think the ending is what convinces me that the film did its job and it did it well. I think Edward Scissorhands is required viewing. And I think that somber, sweet but melancholy note that it hits is one that is perfect for Christmas.
You make an interesting point about how different people are affected by it differently based on their experience. And here, maybe my experience is this, and here's the other wacky analogy I wanted to bring up. Thank you for inspiring it once again here, Demos. Like, the comparison movie that's wacky is this to Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents. I thought that movie had funny moments. I laughed for sure when I first saw it. But the problem is, as it kept going, it got more scary to me. Because at the time, I hadn't even a girlfriend, but I knew at some point that I would meet a young lady and have to meet her parents, and the ish could go that badly for me. Somehow or another, I was able to picture myself to be in a position where I could be coerced in my lockpick fingers to be in a position to help someone, in order to help someone else, to help the biggest douchebag in the town and probably the entire state they live, to do something where I get completely framed and left out to dry by these same people who I care so much for, other than that giant douche, and only can take heart in the fact that I got the opportunity to be justified in killing him. Merry Christmas, mother. Beep.
Oddly enough, I was much more depressed with Meet the Parents than I was. Because Meet the Parents is a film where I constantly just feel bad for Ben Stiller, but it's selling the depressing moments in its through its comedy, wherever Scissorhands is smart enough to keep those separate.
Well, true. No, and you're making an execution point. That's fine. I'm just trying to trying to demonstrate it in terms of feel. To that scale, I'm watching what happens to Edward Scissorhands and go, gosh, if I had scissors for hands, that ish could happen to me. Maybe not so much if I had pencils for a groin, but that's a whole other question.
And one that I'm not going to ask.
Please don't.
No. So what did you guys think of Edward Scissorhands? Do you agree with me that it's required, or do you feel that it's something that should be recommended, or do you think that it's overrated? Let us know in the comments below. And
I am never going to be accused of saying that. I ain't even mad that you put it required. I just don't know what to think. I'm the problem.
Oh, I'm not going to argue with you on that either. So that works very well.
I mean, you have to put up with me every week. You're allowed to say that.
So next week, we'll be back with our look at an older Christmas film, one that we've talked about quite a bit on the show, but you may not be familiar with. It's called The Bishop's Wife, starring Cary Grant and David Niven.